From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson here. And ahead today for you cow-calf producers, K-State's Jaymelynn Farney will talk about mineral supplementation strategies for the cow herd, which are guided by several factors, including cow condition, as well as feed and forage type and availability. She'll look at matching the mineral selection to herd needs. Jaymelynn's speaking on all of this at K-State's Winter Ranch Management Seminars over the next 2 weeks. Also today, from the Analytical Laboratory in K-State's Animal Sciences and Industry Department, Katie Hargrove announces that her lab is now accepting livestock forage samples for nutrient analysis. She'll tell how to access that service. And later, with Stop, Look, and Listen, K-State's Gus Vander Hoeven. Plus more, here on Agriculture Today. Agricultural producers, landowners, and creditors, you have a partner in your legal and financial needs. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services offers reliable, trusted information and guidance. Whether you need advice for ag credit concerns or are transitioning your operation to the next owner, Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services can assist you in making sound decisions for your business. To learn more, call 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Thanks for listening in. This is Agriculture Today. We have been touting the considerable information that will be presented at that series of 4 K-State Winter Ranch Management Seminars coming up starting next week. And what we want to do is extract one of the presentations from that series of seminars and talk in more detail about it, and that would be mineral supplementation for the cow-calf herd. The one who'll be presenting this information is joining us now via phone. Jaymelynn Farney is the Beef Systems Specialist for K-State Research and Extension based in southeast Kansas. Right to the core of this, Jaymelynn, why are minerals so essential to cow-calf management? And tied to that, why are you on the receiving end, you say, of so many questions about this?
Well, Eric, minerals are very important from basic cellular biology in our animals. They're involved in immune function, bone development, reproduction. Pretty much any systemic metabolic process in an animal is based on minerals. But maybe even more importantly from the cattle production perspective, we feed mineral to provide phosphorus. That's kind of a big take-home message. Most of our forages here in Kansas are low in phos, or lower in phos than nutrient requirements are. So we really have to be concerned about that. We also want to make sure we feed minerals to balance our calcium, potassium, sometimes magnesium, especially on lactating animals grazing lush green forages. Trace minerals is another reason why we need to feed a supplemental mineral. Mm-hmm. Outside of a few trace minerals here in Kansas in our forages, we are deficient in our trace minerals, especially for reproductive purposes. And vitamins also become a possible thing to be interested in including in our mineral supplementation packages. Now, minerals are one of the most complicated and least understood components of nutrition. Part of that is because our forage mineral content varies considerably based on our soil mineral content. If we don't have appropriate levels of selenium, for example, in the soil, you don't have as much selenium in your plants. So it makes it very difficult to kind of come up with baselines for what is the basal mineral content of most of our forages.
And that's where you have producers asking questions about how to get to that point.
Yes. And, to even couple that, mineral intake, especially on free choice mineral, is very variable between cows. There's been some newer data coming out that shows that some cows will never touch a mineral feeder, whereas others overconsume. So we have a lot of moving parts in regards to mineral nutrition, and many of these minerals also have interactions, be it positive or negative. Some of them, if we have them in improper balance, we can actually reduce the absorption of essential trace minerals. So, it becomes very, very complex when you talk about mineral supplementation.
With that complexity, then how does one advise a producer on the mineral package that will best suit their feeding environment for one and their animals for the other? Because there is such a diversity of what's going on out there on both counts.
Yes. And most of the time, we probably, there's three kind of categories of mineral status in cattle. What's considered adequate, subclinical, and clinical. We are very good at making sure we provide enough minerals by feed sources, forage, supplemental feed, free choice mineral, to minimize clinical signs of mineral deficiency. It's kind of the subclinical ones that we probably deal with on a more daily basis. And that's the one where we see some reductions in growth and fertility, reductions in immune function and herd health. So when we go to formulating mineral packages or what we need to provide for our animals, we want to meet requirements, but also come up with a very economic supplement series. Mm-hmm. So before I even, jump into free choice minerals, that's what we immediately think of as a mineral supplement. The largest majority of minerals, especially, are macro minerals. Those are the ones that are required at large quantities. Your calcium, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium are examples of your macro minerals. And salt. Salt's actually the number one mineral requirement for cattle. It's also what drives appetite for your minerals. So salt, we often forget about that as a mineral, but it's very important for cattle. But when we talk about those macro minerals, especially calcium in our grasses, we can get anywhere between greater than 80% of calcium requirement just from forages for beef cows. So forages provide a lot of calcium. Mm-hmm. A lot of our feedstuffs that we'll supplement cows with, if they're a byproduct, like dry distillers grains, corn gluten feed, soybean meal, those provide pretty significant amounts of phosphorus, as well as our grains, corn, wheat, barley, provide high levels of phosphorus. You also get high levels of sulfur from your byproduct feeds. So we always think that the only source of mineral is that free choice mineral you put out. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's actually a very small contributor to mineral requirements or mineral status of cows. It's what you're feeding that usually plays a larger role. And we also have quite a bit of minerals in our water sources. That's another source of minerals.
So the feed resources, water, those cover a large percentage of the macronutrients necessary. So is the real challenge here, Jaymelynn, figuring out those micronutrients and how much needs to be provided or administered?
The micronutrients are probably where we need to be more focused on our mineral supplement. Okay. Outside of phos, and I want to go ahead and bring this up about our phosphorus. Because our phosphorus levels change very drastically throughout the growing season of the plant, typically when the plant is lush and green and growing, phosphorus levels are pretty high. When it's dormant, they can potentially be very low. We don't need to provide the same phosphorus mineral year-round. And phosphorus is the most expensive mineral in a mineral supplement. So if you can reduce the amount of phos in lush green growing times, feed a 4% phos mineral at that time, you'll probably be dollars ahead, be able to save some money. And then you feed your higher phos mineral when we kind of get in the end of the summer, when the grass is declining, and into the winter. So that, phosphorus is one that you can make some changes from an economical perspective, but from the trace minerals, they're a pretty low-cost component of your mineral packs. Many mineral companies actually will include the trace minerals to meet 100% of cow requirements. And that way you don't have to worry about your forage trace mineral concentration. Most forages don't have very many trace minerals. Our trace minerals that we're very concerned about are copper, zinc, selenium, manganese, and cobalt. Kansas in general has very high selenium soils, so many of our forages will meet a pregnant cow's selenium requirements. But copper and zinc really become the two that become very important to make sure we provide for our cattle in our trace mineral supplements.
So concentrate on those two is what you're saying as a producer.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, this would be a good point at which to take a break, Jaymelynn. When we come back, we want to pick up on some of the newer mineral supplementation technologies that producers might want to consider for their cow-calf programs. Stand by, if you would. Our guest on this first half of Agriculture Today, Beef Systems Specialist Jaymelynn Farney of K-State Research and Extension. To remind, she'll be talking in considerable detail about mineral supplementation of the beef cow herd at that forthcoming series of winter ranch management seminars that K-State Research and Extension will be hosting the next couple of weeks around Kansas, one each in north central, northeast, west central, and southeast Kansas. We'll remind you of the dates and locations for those a little later on. You're tuned to Agriculture Today, and we'll return in a few moments on this, the K-State Radio Network.
Agriculture and food systems are the main drivers of the Kansas economy, but must be improved in order to feed the world's growing population. How are we going to do so? Reduce food loss, find ways to preserve grasslands, and help families stretch their dollars. Global food systems is one of the 5 grand challenges K-State Research and Extension is addressing. To learn more, visit www.ksre.ksu.edu.
Agriculture Today resumes now here on the K-State Radio Network, and featured during our first half hour today, Jaymelynn Farney, Beef Systems Specialist with K-State Research and Extension. Jaymelynn is taking on the topic of mineral supplementation for the beef cow herd. That will be her subject of choice as she's one of the presenters at K-State's series of winter ranch management seminars coming up over the next 2 weeks around Kansas. And picking up where we left off just before the break, Jaymelynn, you were discussing trace minerals and making selections there based on the cow herd's needs. We've seen the emergence of, to put it this way, new technologies in the area of trace mineral supplementation of late. And you're suggesting that producers give those due consideration as well.
Yes. We often get questions about injectable trace minerals. They are very good products. And the research, though, has been kind of showing variable results as to how consistently you can expect to see improvements. In studies, when they know they have cows that are deficient or moderately deficient, injectable trace minerals will improve pregnancy rates, improve number of cows bred to artificial insemination. But if the cattle already have been on a very good mineral program that's very palatable, consumption is where it needs to be, liver stores are adequate, the injection of those trace minerals didn't appear to directly impact reproduction or health of those animals. The advantage of those trace mineral injections is you do remove all the variability of intake. Mm-hmm. That cow who never touches the mineral, you're making sure she gets some form of trace minerals via that injection. So that's something to really think about. On those injectables, many times what we see out in the producers' operations is they'll use it as a pre-breeding booster to try and help with conception rates. The other thing is I get a lot of questions about trace minerals. Do I need to feed an organic form or inorganic form? And, I have the typical extension answer. It kind of depends. So your organics are a form of trace mineral that has been found to be more bioavailable. By bioavailable, I mean that it's more readily absorbed and goes into the system of the animal than, say, our inorganic sources. Inorganic sources are a cheaper form of our trace minerals, but like I said, even within inorganics, some of them are more readily absorbed than others. So when you're looking at cost comparisons and do I put in organic versus inorganic, oftentimes we say yes to the organics if you are having issues with getting cows bred. You might be having some kind of trace mineral deficiencies, so improving the bioavailability or absorption of those trace minerals might help with breeding. Potentially, if you're having foot rot issues, maybe using something like an amino acid zinc might help as an organic form to help with foot rot. Scours at weaning or high times of stress for your calves, some organic trace minerals might be helpful. And if you're doing embryo or AI work, might be beneficial to use some organic trace minerals. However, if your herd seems to be being very healthy, pregnancy rates and productivity are where you need to be on your current inorganic forms, don't rock the boat. Now, even within the organics, I already told you mineral supplementation is very complex. Mm-hmm. When you go and talk about sources of minerals, it gets even more complex. Right. Because we have sulfate forms and oxide forms, and there's chelates and amino acid complexes and proteinase, and every one of those have a different chemical structure and also have a little bit difference in bioavailability. So when you really want to make the decision, if you're having trouble with some conception and really want a very bioavailable trace mineral, please come and visit with your nutritionist, your K-State Extension faculty to figure out which series of organics might be the most bioavailable.
And really, that gets at a principle here that's worth emphasizing, Jaymelynn, and that is, it sounds as if going about providing these trace minerals in a prescriptive sense, based on these specific either animal conditions or otherwise, that's the way to go as opposed to a broad-brush general mineral supplementation.
That is correct. Many times, you will always make more money if you can spend money on a more expensive mineral at times of high stress or importance, such as breeding or weaning, and times when our animals don't have as high requirements, you can go with a lower cost feed. That is just a very easy way to improve the bottom line of your cattle operation. And right now with tough economic times in the ag industry, anything we can do to meet animal requirements, maintain or improve pregnancy, and reduce cost, that is a management practice we should implement, especially in our mineral supplementation program.
So producers need to step back, maybe re-examine their supplementation approach that they've used in the past, think about how they might tighten that up and target that more specifically. Again, Jaymelynn, you will be talking these ideas up at the upcoming Winter Ranch Management Seminar Series, and would encourage producers to bring their questions to pose to you about this topic.
Yes, please do. And we'll go into more detail with some figures about those strategic supplementation protocols. When do I have the high phos? When should I maybe put in organic? When do I pull out my organics and reduce or increase my phos levels? So we will go into detail and also discuss about how to read the mineral tag. That's another deal. By law, FDA has to tell you what exact components of your trace mineral is in that feed, so you can use that to draw conclusions on quality and bioavailability of your trace minerals.
And don't forget the informational resource that is that tag on the product. That's there for a purpose, so producers should take advantage of that. In a moment, we will list the cities and the dates for the Winter Ranch Management Seminar Series, but this will be one of the featured topics at each of these events: mineral supplementation for the cow-calf herd, and things that you producers need to perhaps re-examine or scrutinize more closely, and assuring that your cow herd mineral intake is up to snuff. Jaymelynn, we appreciate the insight. Thanks, and good luck with these presentations at the seminars very soon.
Thank you, Eric, and we hope to see everybody there.
Indeed. Jaymelynn Farney with us via phone from her office in southeast Kansas, where she is a beef systems specialist for K-State Research and Extension. Quickly now, the rundown on those Winter Ranch Management Seminars. They're coming up next week, as a matter of fact, the 6th of February, Tuesday, in Beloit. Then the next day, the 7th, Wednesday, in Olsburg. And the 8th of February, taking place in Dighton, out in west central Kansas. The final one of these, the following week, February the 13th, a Tuesday. That'll be in Hepler in southeast Kansas. Contact the local extension offices in those areas to reserve your spot at one of these Winter Ranch Management Seminars. Excellent programs all. We have a couple of moments here ahead of the break, so we'll squeeze in the word on the 2018 K-State Cattlemen's Day. Here on the campus, the program has at last been finalized. First off, it'll take place the first Friday of March, as always. That would be March the 2nd at Weber Hall and Arena. And the featured speaker to kick off this year's Cattlemen's Day, the native Kansan who's been nominated to be Chief Agricultural Negotiator in the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, Greg Dowd. And he will be addressing an obviously timely topic at Cattlemen's Day, trade issues in the beef industry. So Greg Dowd has been secured as part of that program. Also that morning, K-State's Glenn Tonzer will provide a beef industry outlook and concentrating there on international trade as a driver of profitability. In the afternoon, then, a wealth of those breakout sessions on feeding cull cows for profit, bud box operation, split time AI to improve profits in the beef breeding program, late season burning as a strategy for Serratia lespedeza control. All that just a sampling of the many, many goings-on at the 105th Cattlemen's Day at Kansas State University, Friday, March the 2nd. They're taking registrations now, and you can look into that, as well as review the whole program itself at ksubeef.org. Go to ksubeef.org. This is Agriculture Today, and we'll be back in a few moments with more here on the K-State Radio Network.
What is radon? Home exposure to radon gas is the leading cause of lung cancer death in the United States for non-smokers. In Kansas, 1 in 4 homes will test at or above the EPA action level. The Surgeon General recommends all homes be tested and fixed if necessary. Visit kansasradonprogram.org for more information. Test, fix, save a life. This message brought to you by the Kansas Radon Program, the Kansas Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
You're tuned in to Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson here, and welcome back. A brief few moments now to let you livestock producers know that the Animal Sciences and Industry Department here at Kansas State University is now extending a new service that you might take advantage of if you'd like to test the content of your livestock forages. Joining us now is the manager for the Analytical Laboratory at Animal Sciences and Industry, Katie Hargrove. She's been on board for just a few months, so welcome, Katie, to K-State, first of all.
Hi, thank you.
Before we get into exactly the forage testing availability now, some background on the laboratory itself. It has been testing any number of things for quite a few years, has it not?
Yes, it was pretty successful back in the day, testing forages, meat analysis, grain analysis, and then the lab kind of dialed back the analysis that it was doing. And now I'm here full-time, so I'd like to offer all the services that it used to offer.
And that includes a resumption of the forage testing,
Yes.
along with everything else that you mentioned now.
Yep.
Talk about the process that your laboratory is going about in receiving samples from producers. What's necessary and so forth?
So you can mail the samples straight to me. The best way to get in contact with me is my email, and I can let you know what exactly you need to do as far as the amount of sample you need to send, if there's a specific way that it needs to be sent. But most of the time, just sending it as is perfectly fine, and then I can do everything else. But, yep, you can send it yourself. You can send it through your extension agent. As long as it gets to me, I can run the samples.
So you're not terribly stringent as far as the size of sample or the number of samples that an individual producer would send? You're pretty flexible in all of this?
Very flexible, yeah. If you're sending an extreme amount of samples, I would definitely like to know, just so I can have a better idea of turnaround time for your benefit. But no, definitely very flexible. Can handle a large amount of samples in hopefully a short amount of time.
And the information that you can generate on those samples would be fairly standard in as far as what laboratories can provide. The protein content, digestible nutrients, all of these things then, correct?
Yes. So we have a LECO nitrogen analyzer for protein content. Then we can do moisture, fat, fiber, nitrates. I'm learning a lot of these new analyses, so just if you have a question on whether or not I can do it, just ask me and I will figure it out for you.
And the hoped for turnaround time for those samples and the information getting back to the producer, do you have a time frame you'd like to shoot for here?
Yeah, I would definitely like to shoot for less than a week.
Of course, that can flex. So
Right.
Not guaranteed, but that's your intent to get those back to the producer very quickly. Is there a place they can learn more about the fees and everything else that's required for sampling here?
Yeah, so a lot of the information is on the Analytical Lab website. So if you just Google Kansas State Analytical Lab, it'll be the first link. Or you can email me at khargrove@ksu.edu, and I get back very quickly, and I'll be able to answer any questions you have.
Again, that's at asi.k-state.edu, looking for the analytical laboratory link there, and we'll give you her email address once more in just a second. But the laboratory continues to offer other things such as grain sampling as well. So it's a broad array of services here that anybody can tap into if they so desire, right, Katie?
Definitely, yeah. I do a lot of meat analysis and grain analysis right now, and so we're hoping to get more forage as time goes on.
Well, we appreciate the quick word here on what's being provided, and good luck with opening up these services to our producers. And appreciate your time, Katie.
Thank you.
She's the laboratory manager for the Analytical Laboratory at the K-State Animal Sciences and Industry Department. Katie Hargrove, once more, they're now providing a forage analysis if you producers would care to sample and have those forages tested. And you can find out more directly from Katie via email. That's your best route. K. Hargrove, that's KHARGROVE at ksu.edu, K. Hargrove at ksu.edu. You're listening to Agriculture Today, and we'll be back with more in a moment on this, the K-State Radio Network.
Have you ever thought about where your food comes from? If you're thinking the grocery store, think again. Facts show that the American farmer feeds more than 129 people.
They are continually increasing and improving their operations. A wide variety of crops and livestock are grown in Kansas as well as the United States, providing food to your dinner plate.
Next time you see a farmer or rancher, thank them. For more information, contact K-State Research and Extension.
This is Agriculture Today. Stop, look, and listen. This is our state, Kansas.
I eased out of the driveway downhill and went on my way.
That's Gus Vanderhoeven of Kansas State University with comment on life in rural Kansas.
Surely the cutting down of a tree is not a sign of manhood. However, when I go to the doctor for my yearly physical, I will tell him, as I always seem to do. I use cutting down a tree and making firewood as an indication that I can still do it. Or maybe it is an indication of my stupidity. A friend was out of wood. They burn a lot in the big stove in their basement, which is a mighty den. I told him I had the right tree for him, and that if he helped cut it up, the tree and all the wood was his. He gladly accepted my offer and responded with a gift of his homemade bread. Good bread. When the weather broke, I threw the chainsaw in the back of the truck with the can of fuel. When I tried to start it, it ran on the second pull. Apparently, the fuel additive worked, and that was worth the money. There's nothing as frustrating as a chainsaw which won't start. It can kill a man. I eased out of the driveway downhill and went on my way. I made it to the tree I planned to cut down for my friend. I turned the truck around and parked so that the fallen tree would not block my way out, because with the chainsaw in the back I had started to consider to lay the tree down. So that job had been done, and on the next trip my friend and I only had to need it cut it up. With the engine turned off, all was quiet. The sun was cozy warm, and there was only a small breeze pushing against the dead tree. It was a big tree, a dead elm, diameter 33 inches across. It had been standing there dead for a couple of years. The red hawk had used it for a perch with a clear view around, but there were other trees for him or her to perch on, so I had no qualms to go ahead and cut this one down. Even less so because I knew that the wood was dry and hard and would give heat to the stove. I briefly studied the job ahead, having decided to cut the tree down right then and there. The aim would be to drop it on the seldom used back road. The wind, at times, would pick up a little bit though, but I ignored it. There were no leaves on the tree. It was dead. To be sure I would be in control, I untied a rope and added a small block to one end, and threw it across a big branch. My third try was a good one, and with the weight I eased the end of the rope down. I tied a loop, pulled the rope tight, and attached the other end to the truck. Then I eased the truck forward. The rope was now taut. It was a long rope, long enough that when the tree would fall, it would not fall on the truck. One pull, and the chainsaw roared. I was committed. I just cleaned up near the base of the tree and cut off some of the lower sprouts, which did not give me a clear cutting view. I moved some branch stumps, which had dropped earlier, to make sure my feet stood squarely on the ground, so that when I would have to step back, I could do so safely. Then I opened the throttle and started to make the first cut. I realized that my small chainsaw could not cut across the full width of the tree trunk. The sharp chainsaw bit into the dead wood, and I pushed the saw in and around to make a full cut. It was not the way I wanted it, but it worked. Then I started my slanted cut. It too did not cut the full width of the tree trunk, but it cut, and I flipped the wedge to the side. I could see that I would have to make several more wedge cuts to cut a wedge deep enough to make the tree fall where I wanted it to land, on the road, behind the truck, so wood would be easy to load. I made a few more wedge cuts, watching and listening, more watching then hearing, as chainsaws make a noise and ear mufflers don't help with hearing. I trusted the rope as I cut some more. When I stepped back, I realized that by now I had cut the proper wedge, and a small cut on the other side of the tree would send it crashing down. From now on, full attention was needed. With the big and deep wedge cut, I had no doubt which way the tree would fall. Also, with the tension on the rope as precaution, I felt sure. One more careful cut. As I reinserted the chainsaw, I could hear the first creaking. Then momentarily silence, and whoosh, crash, boom! The tree went down. I had not run away, as I sensed it would fall. The only thing, it had toppled the other way than I had intended. It toppled across the fence. Once the tree was down, I felt safe again. Looking at the results, I knew that all I would have to do was back the truck to the downed fence line and load the cut-up pieces from up there. No problem. Good firewood. The next day we did cut the fallen tree up and hauled the wood home. I can tell Doc I'm still able to do it. However, I should not have started the very last cut, but should have pulled the tree over with the truck. You always learn, even at 85 plus years.
Gus Vander Hoeven of Kansas State University with his weekly commentary on rural Kansas. Our time's away for today. Thanks for listening in. Eric Atkinson here for Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network.